So it is so rare that we meet somebody who truly understands how to get the full value out of their employee stock options. And I think that's because many people just confuse this in the money value as the true value of the option, but there's quite a bit more to it. And that's why we wanted to put this video together for you here today at Mariner Wealth Advisors, because this is a reoccurring theme. Many employees understand the basics of their stock options, but we find it extremely rare that someone is following a formulaic process when it comes to estimating the projected value of their employee stock options. My name is Michael McKelvey, and I'm a certified financial planner. If you're new to our channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button to follow along for more industry insights from industry professionals here at Mariner Wealth Advisors. If you feel like you'd benefit from having a guide, maybe this stock option process is confusing or complex, or you're curious, hey, how do I minimize my taxes? How do I get the full estimated value out of my stock options? You can feel free to schedule a complimentary consultation by clicking the link down in the description. But for now, let's dive into it. So to start, we're going to cover how employee stock options work. And if you feel like you already got a grip on this, you don't need a refresher, you can feel free to skip ahead later in the video where we talk about estimating the full projected value. So at its fundamental level, an employee stock option is the right to purchase employer stock at a given price over a given period of time. So step one involves awareness of the employee stock option plan that you're in, because even though employee stock options share the same fundamental definition, they can vary plan to plan. Do you have a non-qualified plan? Do you have an incentive stock option plan? What is the tax treatment of the stock options that you have? What happens if you leave the company or if you get fired? What is the expiration date of the different stock option grants that you have? You want to make sure that you have an understanding what type of stock option plan that you have and the different characteristics that come with it. Step two involves understanding the potential of the stock option. So leverage is inherent in all stock options. It's critically important to understand. Unfortunately, it's not always the easiest thing to grasp. And that's why I like using examples. So let's jump into an example real quick. So when you buy a home, typically you borrow some money to do so, right? You're only required to put a small amount down of the purchase price up front, and that's in the form of the down payment. You participate, however, in the changes in value for the entire home, not just the down payment you invested. The less money you put down, the greater the leverage. As this home appreciates, your rate of return on your initial investment, the down payment, decreases. And the same can be said for employee stock options. The value of the option will decrease as the options go deeper into the money, as the intrinsic value increases. Take a look at this chart to see if it helps out. So in our example here, the current stock price is $20, at which point the stock options are worth $500. Now, assume the stock price increases by 10%, so it's now at $22 a share. The options, however, are worth $700. Which is a 40% increase in value from just a 10% increase in the price of stock. So the stock option saw 4 times the percentage increase as the underlying stock. The column on the far right can also help us understand the relationship between the price of the stock and the leverage in the options. Simply put, as the price of the stock continues to increase and the options go deeper in the money, the amount of leverage begins to decrease. The blue is the options, the red is the outright owned shares. The starting point assumes that the in-the-money value of the options is identical to the fair market value of the outright owned shares. But you can see that this gap widens as time goes on. Options will change in value drastically more than if they were owned outright as shares. So why is leverage so important? Well, it creates significant potential for wealth accumulation, but leverage is a double-edged sword. Just as quickly as the options can increase in value, they can fall out of favor and go the opposite direction. So keep that in mind. So as mentioned earlier, many employees confuse the in-the-money value for the full value of the stock option, but there's a couple other variables we need to pay attention to here. Most notably, the time value of the option. There's an expiration date, so there's a time value, as well as the risk of the underlying stock. And unfortunately, these two variables are often neglected, potentially costing employees thousands of dollars, if not more. So let's walk through it. Here's the formula that we use to evaluate employee stock options. The full potential value of the option equals the in-the-money value, what it's worth today, plus the time value, what it can grow to and become tomorrow. So you might have noticed that we added another variable to this formula, the time value. We touched on that earlier. Now it's in the formula. And the way that we get to the time value is actually through a fairly complex formula. I'm going to get to that here in just a little bit. Step 3, if we're going to calculate the value of an option, we must calculate the underlying risk. Because if we can measure risk, then we can manage the risk. And to do so, we're going to use the Black-Scholes model. This kind of sounds like dark magic. It isn't. It's just one way to measure the value of an option. Our equity compensation report will do this for our clients, and really anybody that schedules an initial consultation with us will get this equity compensation report. And that's a good thing because the computation is fairly intricate. It's complex. There's quite a bit that goes into it. There are 5 different components, in fact. The first is stock volatility, the up and down. And we use the annualized historical standard deviation of the stock, which is normal for Black-Scholes. All else being equal, the higher the standard deviation, the larger the full projected value of the stock option. But still, this comes with the inherent risk of greater loss. Second, the expiration date. And this is the time value component. This decreases as time goes on, which this graph illustrates. The third component is the risk-free rate. And typically some form of a treasury is used here. All else being equal, the higher the treasury rate, the higher the full projected value of that stock option. The fourth component is dividends. When you own an option, that option does not pay dividends. If you exercise the option and then you own the share outright thereafter, you would get dividends going forward. By owning the option though, you maintain leverage, but you give up dividends. You give up income in this case. So the higher the dividend, the less attractive the option is. So as dividends increase for the underlying stock, the value of the option decreases, all else being equal. And lastly, the current spread, which is found by taking the current price and subtracting the strike price, sometimes referred to as the exercise price. The larger the spread, the deeper in the money that option is, and the higher the full option potential value. However, there is less time value relative to the option full value. So essentially, you are being compensated less for each incremental gain that current spread experiences. So as you can see, there is a lot to this. It's a good thing this equity compensation report does this for us. But this Black-Scholes model, it takes these 5 components, and again, it gives us a full projected value of the different set of options that one might have. Critically important, very helpful because there is this time value component that so few people recognize. But now what do we do? Just because we have this full projected option value, that doesn't mean we've completely solved our problem. There's still a question of what do I do next once I exercise the option, once I get the money? What do I diversify away into? There's nearly an infinite amount of investment options, tools, plays out there for me. So what makes the most sense? That's where investors can feel a sense of paralysis. Some typical questions that we get, well, hey, what's our exit strategy? What are we diversifying away into after this? And that all comes back to what are you trying to do? And if you actually pause on that question, think a little bit more deeply and think, okay, is this money going to be used for college? Is it going to be used for retirement? Is it for legacy or charitable purposes? You can see where many people are lost because the answer not only depends on the different options that are out there, but it depends on what you're trying to do. So don't settle for this. Connect with one of our advisors for a complimentary consultation, and we'll show you what a full service firm can do. As always, I hope that you found this video educational. Take care.